No, I mean, I don't think they're going to do it at all. I don't think. Obviously, they have till March 1st, and I like Casey, and I heard his thoughts, and I don't know anybody else who thinks that, to be perfectly honest. And we're talking about a quarterback, Mike, who is now 63 games into his NFL career as a starter. He's won 25 of them. That is not a small sample size. And I think Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson are too smart to allocate $20+ million to him. I think the only way Sam Bradford is back as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles, and there's only one guy, and I'll give him credit, is John Clayton, who said he doesn't think Sam Bradford's going to get more than 16-something in that range. I think maybe if it's a 3-year deal and that comes to fruition and he doesn't have as much interest on the free agent market as people think he would, I think that's the only opportunity for him to come back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, look, the $19.7 million, does that change the thought process? I mean, some people thought it could be up in over the $20 million mark. Is $19.7 million a number you would feel more comfortable with on a 1-year franchise deal?
I wouldn't. I don't think they do. And remember, that's still an estimate at this point. The salary cap hasn't been set. It's going to probably raise anywhere from $9 to $12 million, somewhere in that range. And that's where they're coming up with that 19.7 figure. It's going to be very close to that. Might be a little bit less, might be a little bit more. It's going to be in that range. And we've seen what the Eagles have done pre-free agency and the fact of identifying core young players, extending them to team-friendly deals. Sam Bradford at 1 year for $19.7 million isn't a team-friendly deal. Chip Kelly's no longer in charge of football operations. They're not going to give out dumb contracts. That's a dumb contract, and they're just not going to do it.
Yeah, and Sam Bradford, I mean, you would agree, Casey believes, and I think most of us would agree, I think everybody would agree, that Bradford is the best free agent quarterback on the market.
Well, I think he is, or Kirk Cousins. I think he could argue for Cousins because he had more success, and that's the team that won the NFC East. But I think people go back to the fact he was the number 1 overall pick, and they lean on that, and they point to his skill set, and they talk about his ceiling. But that is many, many years in the rearview mirror. I mean, to me, Kirk Cousins is a guy who had significantly more success in his first opportunity. Now, by no means do I think he's getting out of Washington, even though there are reports from Adam Schefter that they tabled negotiations. He will get the franchise tag if it comes down to that. I would have to rate him above, but there's not a lot on the market. So Sam would obviously be the next option and the most likely option because he's the one that's probably going to hit the market.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com. John, how much, the fact that teams like Denver, Manning was mediocre, I guess I'm being kind, that are defensive-minded, just having, a good quarterback and not a great quarterback, does that make the Eagles look at Bradford and say, look, he's good, he might not be great, but we have a defense that we think that we can lean on?
Well, I think that mentality could work. Obviously, it just did, as you mentioned. If anything, Peyton Manning was a below-average quarterback in winning the Super Bowl. But I talked with Scott yesterday when you're on vacation, and and I have a lot of optimism for that defense. And I love the Jim Schwartz hire. We've talked about that. I think the potential with Vinny Curry is tremendous. I think Fletcher Cox is going to be a superstar. But when you look at those outside pass rushers, as much as I like Vinny Curry, and as much as I think he has a ceiling in this league, Brandon Graham, the same thing, I'm not going to call him Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. So there is a big difference between what the Denver Broncos brought to the dance defensively and basically anybody else in pro football. So you can try to put together that similar type equation, but it's going to be difficult to replicate the production of those pass rushers. And that, to me, is the biggest issue. So I think you need a little bit better play out of the quarterback position. And by the way, I think Sam Bradford can get you there. The issue, there's only one issue here. The issue is the contract and the money he's asking for. We've seen Tom Condon, you can shoot for the stars if you want, and he's doing that, talking about $25 million. Now, nobody's going to give Sam Bradford that. We all understand that. He's going to be in the 18 range, probably maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less if John Clayton's right. You have to ask yourself, is this guy worth investing in for the next 3 years at that kind of money, or would you rather reboot and get either a bridge quarterback and draft a young quarterback, or if Doug Peterson has confidence in a Chase Daniel type, he might decide that's the better way to go.
John, let's look at some of the other guys. As you tweeted out earlier that all eyes are on Bradford and Cousins. How about the news today with Cousins that they have broken off contract talks for now? Does it mean to you that the franchise tag is more likely, or do you think the Redskins want to get Cousins locked up long term? Are they sold on Kirk Cousins being their guy?
Yeah, they're sold. He's going to be the quarterback of the Washington Redskins next season. And I think that report is, much ado about nothing. Remember, February 16th, this is the first day people can put franchise tags on their particular players. They have all the way up to March 1st to decide to put it on there. Both the Redskins and Cousins would rather have a long-term deal done. And if they don't get that done by March 1st, then they'll have to put the franchise tag on him, and they will. And remember, he doesn't have to sign it at that point. You can continue to negotiate the long-term deal. It just keeps him under the auspices of Washington. They don't have to worry about other teams upping the price and things like that. So that's a thing that is going to get done. It's just a matter of when. It's just a matter of how many years. But Jay Gruden loves Cousins, and he understands that's the best situation for him, because the last thing he wants to do is enter into a new city, a new offensive system with new coaches.
You'd think that some rogue team, though, comes in and gives Cousins a big offer?
Well, I don't think it ever gets to that point, because, as I said, if March 1st rolls around, they're going to franchise. And at that point, if you have the exclusive franchise tag, then what you're saying is by offering Kirk Cousins $22 million, say, and you also have to give up 2 first-round picks. Nobody's doing that. I mean, as valuable as the quarterback position is, and we all understand that, nobody can afford that kind of price tag. So by putting the tag on him, you end all that speculation.
ESPN.com did 5 moves each NFC East team should make, John. I'll give you the 5 for the Eagles and get your take on them and see if you agree. Number 1 is don't franchise Sam Bradford. Agree?
Agree wholeheartedly, 110%.
Number 2, sign Chase Daniel. Is that the route that if they don't sign or get a deal done with Bradford, is he the next best option?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. Doug's very comfortable with him. I still don't think, even though I don't think it's likely, I still don't think Nick Foles is out of the equation because he's very comfortable with him. And I think from Doug Peterson's perspective, that's what he would rather do. He would rather go the bridge quarterback route to a young quarterback, whether that's at number 13 overall in the draft or a second-round, third-round pick that they really, really think has a ceiling later down the line. I think that's his preference and what he would rather do.
It's interesting that Daniel's 29 and Bradford's 28, and a lot of people think that Daniel, who would be a younger guy that maybe could hold a seat one for a couple of years. He's actually older than Sam Bradford is, and a lot of people probably don't know much about him. He hasn't really played all that much. He's thrown 68 total passes in 3 years, so he would be a complete unknown player, much in the way that Doug Peterson was.
Yeah, and remember, the same thing happened last year with Buffalo and Tyrod Taylor. Everyone went, is Rex Ryan crazy? Because we never saw Taylor play because he played behind Joe Flacco, who never missed a game in his NFL career till he tore his ACL late in this season. Chase Daniels, similar. He played behind Drew Brees, who is very, very durable. Played behind Alex Smith, who's very, very durable. So he hasn't gotten a chance to play. Doesn't mean he can't play. I would not expect him to come in here if the Eagles do go in that direction and be a star quarterback by any stretch of the imagination. But I think he would serve as a better bridge than certainly Doug, for instance, was in 1999 because he just didn't have the skill set to play in this league. I think Daniel's better than that.
Number 3, lock up Fletcher Cox.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do that. You have some time, obviously. And Fletcher's part of it has to come into the equation, too, because I'm sure he's getting advice, and his agents have told him what we all know. And look at Jim Schwartz's history. And it starts with Albert Haynesworth in Nashville, and it goes to Ndamukong Suh in Detroit, and Marcel Darius in Buffalo. If you play the 3 technique in his defense and you have talent, and Fletcher Cox was an all-pro level player playing in a defense that didn't suit him. So he's got talent. He could break the bank by waiting a year. So the Eagles certainly want to get things done as soon as possible, get as team-friendly a deal as they can. Either way, he's going to make a ton of money, and the Eagles will certainly get it done.
Yeah, Fletcher Cox, the guarantee out there of more than $50 million reportedly. So obviously, Fletcher's going to make a lot of money. It's just whether or not he wants to roll the dice and try out free agency or get it from the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 4, and you wrote about that this is a tough one for the Eagles over at 97.3 ESPN.com, and they think the Eagles should try to re-sign Walter Thurman.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good player this year. He really was. And for all the criticism we gave Chip Kelly on his personnel moves, that was the one that worked. It was a tremendous signing, moving in from nickel cornerback to safety. But we always talk about the square pegs and the round holes when it came to Bill Davis' defense, whether it's Fletcher Cox, whether it's Benny Logan, Vinnie Curry, Michael Kendricks. Walter Thurman might be the opposite in the fact that he's more suited for what Bill Davis wanted, and that's 2 coverage safeties next to Malcolm Jenkins as opposed to what Jim Schwartz is going to want. He's going to want a more traditional setup. I don't like to throw out those terms free safety and strong safety any longer because they're kind of a bit outdated. But I think he would prefer to have one who can play in the box. And obviously, if you have to make a decision, you already have Malcolm under contract. He's the better player. That would make it more likely than not. Unfortunately, the Eagles are going to move on from Walter Thurman. And secondly to that, Mike, is the fact that he's going to get a big payday because he played well last season. Yeah. So I'm not sure they can afford him.
Yeah, and you know, Walter Thurman's a guy, as you mentioned, made the transition from corner to safety. I'm wondering where Jim Schwartz sees Eric Rowe moving forward here.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wrote in the piece. There are options, and as I said, even though you always have preferences for what you want at particular positions, you can't get everything done in one off season. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to bring back a productive player and just kind of fill in the other positions you need to first. And then there's the option that if you want to move Eric Rowe back to safety, for instance, if he thinks that's his better long-term future, well, then you need a cornerback, and maybe Walter can move back to corner. Maybe he can move back to nickel corner if you don't want Malcolm Jenkins handling a dual role. So there are places where he could fit. I'm just not sure with the money that he's going to get and what Jim Schwartz wants to accomplish, the Eagles are going to be able to afford him.
John, number 5, don't move on from DeMarco Murray. Can they build an offense around DeMarco Murray?
Well, they're going to have to. They can't move on from him. The only way they can move on from him is to trade him because it would cost significantly more money to cut him than to keep him. So it's a worst-case scenario. You're going to see a $8 million guy sitting on the bench because it would cost $13 million to cut him. So it would behoove the Eagles to, I don't know if they want to build their entire offense around him, but to accentuate the strengths of his game as best as they can. And I think he fits in better with what Doug wants to do. As far as a traditional offense, you're probably going to see a fullback on this team. You're going to see more I formations, and you're going to see more running downhill, and that fits him. So both sides need each other, and both sides should be working to make sure things go as smoothly as possible this season, and I think the Eagles will do that.
John McMullen's with us, 97.3 ESPN.com, getting ready for the franchise and, of course, the Eagles offseason. The Combine is coming up. We'll get into full NFL draft mode here shortly, but a lot of NFL news and notes. And as you write at today's pigskin.com about the LaShawn McCoy incident and how it will test the NFL's reactionary policies, it looks like the news on McCoy should be coming in sometime this week. But what do you think this will change some of the ways the NFL does things again in the offseason?
Well, you remember, I've often been an advocate. I understand the Players Association certainly has to work for their players, and they want to get them as much time off as possible. But I'm a firm believer there's unintended consequences for everything. And this current CBA, where you scale back not only practice time, but also time players to be at the facility. We've talked about this before, especially young men. When they don't have anything to do, they tend to get into trouble. Whereas if you get up at 8 in the morning and you have to go to work, you're going to go to work and you're probably not going to get in trouble. So I think that's one of those things the Players Association should take under advisement and say, hey, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if we give these players if we give these teams a little bit more latitude as far as having guys in. At least, it might not be physical, it might not be practices, but if they were required to report to the facility, to watch film, to study, to have meetings with the coaches, I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing. I think both sides should take that under advisement.
All right. And obviously, last one, we look at Peyton Manning, the story that was written in the New York Daily News over the weekend, and a lot of people up in arms about, a lot of discussion over it, and of course it kind of got buried at the end of the week and on a long weekend here, but some people suggest that this is, the information in that story that really seems to be new is the cover-up portion of the story, but is this a story that Peyton Manning now has the HGH story following him around, and now this one, what do you think about Peyton Manning?
Well, I think the HGH one is the bigger deal because the Washington Post followed up on that, and they've confirmed the fact that shipments were sent to Manning's wife. And at some point, if you come back and you want to play, you're going to have to answer those questions. So I think Peyton's smart enough to understand he's going out on top from a football perspective. His skills are declining anyway. He's not the player he once was. And then on top of it, you have two scandals you have to deal with. And you're right. As far as the cover-up is always worse than the crime. A lot of the issues that Peyton Manning is having from something that happened in 1996 deal directly with his hubris and his inability to keep it under wraps. So if he comes back, all that stuff is just going to be out under the microscope, and it's everything he's going to take under account. I firmly believe, as I said before, I think we've seen him play his last NFL game.
Yeah, and apparently a lot of networks are coming after him. We talked about last week what's the next step for him in his career. I guess quite possibly being a color analyst or maybe being a pregame show host or some sort of NFL talking head.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been great on television. I always point, he got rave reviews for his Saturday Night Live appearance back in the day. He's got a dry sense of humor. You've seen him as a pitch man. But as I said last week, this is a guy who's made $250 million playing professional football. So it's not like he needs NBC or Fox or somebody else. If he wants to do it, I think he'll have the opportunity to do it, even after these two stories. But it remains to be seen what he wants to do. A lot of people speculate he wants to be like John Elway, and the fact that he would like to be in the front office and running a team. And a lot of people have speculated Nashville because of his history at Tennessee. And that's where the story in the New York Daily News hurts more than anything else, because it brings up those old stories from 1996 when he was in college.
Yeah.
And so if he has that intent trying to get in with the Titans. It could hurt him there.
Yeah, and last one, Roger Goodell, $34 million, a 23% decrease over the last 2 years. But it seems like the NFL is doing good, John. This just in.
He took a big pay cut to satisfy everyone.
That's like $1 million from each team.
Yeah, the guy's getting paid $34 million a year to be the guy who he's basically the piñata. So really, the 32 owners of this league are his boss, and they're the ones who set the policies. And when you don't like something, whether it's dealing with personal conduct or substance abuse, it's Roger Goodell's job to go out there and take the hit.
Right.
He's done it.
$34 million to take the bullet, right?
Exactly. None more than me. I constantly write about he should resign. He takes all that, and that's why he gets paid as much as he does.
He's John McMullen. As NFL season, off-season starts to heat up now, we'll see if anybody uses the franchise tag. And, of course, the NFL draft underway. NFL draft process underway. We'll be all over the draft, and you can listen to the draft here on 97.3 ESPN on that Thursday the 28th. John has more at 97.3ESPN.com, at JF McMullen on Twitter. All right, pal.
Hey, thanks, Mike.